So if someone was to ask me, where in the Bible does it allow men to be in leadership? My answer wouldn't be a particular verse or passage that addresses that question head on. What I would just show are the examples of God calling men to positions of leadership. So if someone asked me, where in the Bible does it allow women to be in leadership? Again, I would point to examples of God calling women. I can start with Genesis 1 and the idea that male and female together were created in the image of God, which means what? We convey the authority of God, represent that to the rest of creation. I could talk about the role that Adam and Eve play together in the garden as co-workers, or I could get more specific and talk about people like Miriam, who served as a leader within the Israelite community alongside her brother Moses. I could talk about Deborah, one of the first judges, various prophets in the Old Testament who speak for God, Deborah, Huldah, the wife of Isaiah. But when we come to the New Testament, we find this explosion of women in ministerial positions, many of whom were co-workers of the Apostle Paul. So we could talk about Junia, who's identified as outstanding among the apostles. We could talk about the daughters of Philip, who are all prophets. Priscilla, who clearly functions as a teacher. Phoebe, who is called a deacon. Lydia, who has her own house church. Now, Pentecostals especially emphasize the biblical support of women in ministry roles, and that includes speaking roles and leadership roles, because of our emphasis on the gift of the Holy Spirit to empower all believers in all manner of spiritual gifts. The prophet Joel expressly says that when the Spirit is poured out on all flesh, one of those signs will be your sons and your daughters will prophesy. Joel 2:28. Peter quotes Joel on the day of Pentecost, Acts 2:17. And then when he talks about the gift of the Spirit at the end of his sermon, he says in Acts 2:38 that this gift is for you, your children, and those who are far off, without any hint of gender distinction in receiving or working out the gift of the Spirit to do what? To empower all believers. When Paul talks about spiritual gifts in 1 Corinthians 12, again, there's no distinction in gender implied by his language of saying this is to everyone, this is to each one. All these examples given to us in the New Testament showcase women in all types of ministry and leadership roles.